Hey guys, welcome back to the 20th episode of Let's Play Space Engineers as a German engineer. As you can tell, I'm a little bit sick, but that shouldn't stop us from getting something amazing done. I've put together a couple of items on this engineering list that I want to work on today, so let's go over them quickly together and figure out what we're doing. Before I even go into this, I want to show you something very quickly. So last time we built the ice mine and the ice processing back here, and that is working, and it's working way too good. In fact, we're accumulating so much ice that I am going to go and shut off this ice mine. Actually, I don't need to go over to do this, but I'm going to shut it right off. Ice mine blocks, these ones here. Toggle block off. These are all the drills and rotors and pistons. And it's good that we can get so much ice out of this ice mine. That's amazing. But there's a couple things that we need to... there's a couple lessons that we need to take away here. The first one is we need to increase our ice processing. I think right now we have 2 or 4 H2 generators. Not quite sure how many it is. It's definitely not enough. We probably want to double or triple the H2 processing. And I have an item on this here. Increase ice processing. But then the sheer amount of ice that was stored in our main storage also inspired me to work on my inventory management a little bit in the base. What do I mean with that? There's a couple things that I want to do. Let's skip over the first item here for now, because that's going to be kind of like ground laying work that we will need to do to get all the other things done. Actually, more importantly here, I want to isolate the mines, and that is both the stone mine over here as well as the ice mine back here. I want to isolate them from my main storage so that when those mines produce more than can be processed, then the raw materials, in particular the stone or the ice, are not going to be stored in our main inventory. The other thing is I want to build a gravel buffer. So gravel is kind of like a waste product that you don't really need, except for reactors. And so I want to make sure that I have some amount of gravel stored away that I can use if I ever want to build a reactor. So I want to build a storage that will store sufficient amount of gravel so that we could build a reactor from it, but not interfere with our other kind of like goals and plans here. Actually, one additional thing that I want to put on here is gravel disposal. So we want to build a gravel disposal as well. And then once we've disconnected the mines from our main storage, we will add some kind of like additional storage for the mines particularly where like the raw material can be buffered. But once we've disconnected them from the main storage, we also want to make sure that once that buffer storage is filled up, that the mines don't continue working. If the mines continue working and more material is accumulated, that material will just get deleted. And that's a waste of resources. So what I want to do is I want to set up an overflow valve on each of the mines that kind of can detect when the storage is full and shut off the mine. And there are a lot of scripts that can do this, but I thought it would be more interesting to try to build something just with vanilla blocks. And I think we can do it. I'll go into more detail exactly like how we're going to build this overflow valve once we get to that. So the idea is we determine when our storage is full. When our storage is full, we turn off the mine until our storage has cleared and we have enough space to accumulate more raw resources again. And then I also want to build an inventory dashboard here at the ice mine. We've built that amazing inventory dashboard at the other base, but right now here at the ice mine, I have no clue what's in our inventory, and like I'd love to have that overview just like at the other base. And then lastly, I'd like to kind of expand the inventory dashboard to also show total and used percentage of storage. I think that's going to be a useful metric to have on the dashboard. The one thing that we kind of glossed over is investigate how do conveyors work. How do conveyors work? Is that proper English? I don't know. Now it is. So what do I mean with this? So a bunch of these goals here, that are a bunch of the things that I want to work on, they will require intricate knowledge of how the specific mechanics, the conveyor mechanics work. How do blocks share resources with each other? How does the kind of push and the pull mechanics within the conveyor network work? How do different blocks prioritize where to pull material from and where to push it to, and so forth. So I want to investigate this a little bit. I think I've heard a lot of different things from different people around this, like how this works, and I think there's probably a lot of urban knowledge. Kind of people think that certain things work certain ways, and I'm not entirely sure if that is actually true. So I want to investigate this myself a little bit and figure out, with some experiments, and figure out how does the conveyor system work, and how does pushing and pulling within the conveyor system work, so that we can use this knowledge then to build like all these other things here, just plain from vanilla blocks, without having to use any scripts or anything else to kind of manage the inventory within our base ice base a little bit better. Let's quickly start with increasing the ice processing. That should be pretty simple. I just want to build a couple more O2 generators. I'll get back to you once that is done. Okay, I've expanded the O2 processing capabilities. I had 4 O2H2 generators here before, and now I have a total of 12. That should help with how quickly we're processing these. Let's see how full let's quickly see how full the H2 tanks are. 12%. Okay, we may have to expand that at some point as well. It might actually make sense to expand the storage script to also show us how much hydrogen we have. So for ice, for example, we could show ice as the raw material and hydrogen as the process material on the dashboard. Okay, that's done. Let's get to investigating how conveyors work. Okay, I started a creative world for us to do this experimentation. I will make it a little bit easier and a little bit quicker. Let's put a block here to start. And let's put a junction here. And we're going to put a cargo container next to that. We also need a block that can actually push into our conveyor system. And the easiest block to use for that is just a drill. A drill will always push all of its inventory into the conveyor system. Let's see here. Let's add some conveyor tubes. And we need some power as well. Can we just slap a battery here somewhere? This cargo container is currently empty. I have a couple of resources here in my inventory already. So it should be pretty obvious that if I put any amount of resources, put in the drill, it pushes it into the small cargo container. One question that I have, I think that is interesting, is if we put a small cargo container in here, right? Which cargo container will it choose to push its resources to? Put it back in the drill. So now it pushed it to small cargo container 2, which is the one that we have placed closer to the drill. But now this one was built later than this one. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to erase this one and replace it so that this one is more recently built than this one. If we look at the inventory now, we have cargo container 2 and cargo container 3. Cargo container 3 is the more recently built one. But we can see it still moves it into the cargo container 2, right? Which is this one. So it seems to be selecting it based on closeness. But there's like another thing that is particular here is that there's a conveyor junction between these. So maybe the behavior is different if this wasn't a junction, but just like a straight tube. So we'll go and try this again. And it's the same behavior. So the junction here didn't actually make a difference, which is what I assumed. Let's put the junction back. But one thing that's also obvious here is like these are like this one clearly comes like it's basically built in series with this cargo container, right? And so being built in series means that when it comes to the question which one is closer to this drill, there's no possible interpretation of what distance means where this would be further away than this one. What do I mean with that? So for example, what if we had another cargo container that instead of having this cargo container here, right? Let's remove this. Oh, there's our eyes. Instead of having this there, let's put a conveyor here. Let's put another cargo container right on top. So now, each of these two cargo containers is the exact same distance from this drill, right? There's 4 blocks of conveyor, 1 conveyor junction, and then the 2 cargo containers. So, like, which one is closer now? Right? That's a good question, and I don't know the answer to this. But we will find out. Cargo container 3 was selected, which is the one that's back here, and which is the older one. So now, order in the inventory system might make a difference. And maybe it selects, if they're the same distance, maybe it selects the first one. So let's rebuild this one and try this again. So now if our theory is correct, if they're the same distance in terms of conveyor blocks, and there's another question that we actually should look at. Maybe it's not conveyor blocks, maybe it's actually air blocks. And maybe the number of conveyor blocks is actually irrelevant. Maybe it's just the number of junctions. And so there's a couple more experiments that we definitely need to do. But where will the ice go now that we've rebuilt this one? Okay, we'll go to 5, which is interesting. So this might actually mean that it's the most recently built if they are the same distance. So if I remove this one again and rebuild this one again, will it now go into this one? No. Now I'm a little bit confused. There doesn't seem to be a pattern here. I'm just verifying that it goes into this cargo container every single time. Yeah, it seems to just go to the one that goes straight. I don't know if there was any case in which that was different. So it seems to prefer going straight. What if this conveyor is differently oriented? Oops. So now the text is on the conveyor is pointing up. Like it's upright. This was not the case before. Put this in the drill now. Now it ends up in 11, which is the one on top. Maybe it depends on where I access it from. And here it goes into 11 still. What if I rebuild this one now? Still 11. What if I rebuild 11 now? 13. So it's still 13. This would tell me that if the distance is equal, it has a preferred exit direction from this junction. Let's try something else though, because I do want to know what happens if I put a cargo container. Like, is the distance here really relevant? As in, if I were to put some conveyors here, but only 2, and then put a cargo container right here at the end. Right, this is only 3 blocks away, whereas these here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks away. So would this now end up putting the material into this cargo container over these reliably? And then if it does that, is that because it prefers this exit here out of the drill, or is it because this distance is shorter? So let's see. So this is 14 is the most recent one. So that's the one that got selected. Right? This here is 14. Yeah, it's in here. So let's try that again, just for good measure. And it selected 14 again. So now if we remove this and expand the conveyors, now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now this is definitely. Let's put the cargo container on here as well. So this is now further away. Then these here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is 8. But there's no junction. Whereas here, here's no junction, whereas here is a junction. So that might also make a difference. Let's look at it again. Drill. Interesting. So we still end up in 15. So the junction might actually make a difference. If we remove this on top and this junction, just put a straight conveyor tube. Now this one is closer than this one over there in basically every way. Yeah, so now it ends up in here. So the number of junctions might actually make a significant difference. And in fact, it might make the main difference. So like, it put it in cal container 12 right now because there's no junction and it's closer in terms of conveyor tubes. But will this hold true if I remove these here and make this even shorter? Like, let's say we'll just put one tube. Right, will it still prefer the cal container that has less tubes? It doesn't not. So the number of tubes is not relevant. But it appears like it might be that the number of junctions is relevant. So if we leave this the same here, the only change we make, we put a junction here. Will this go into the other container now? Yes. If we put the junction into each, will it go back out to number 12? Yes. Since the number of junctions are equal, and the number of conveyor tubes is not relevant. What if we put 2 junctions here? Because maybe the number of junctions is not what is relevant, but it seems to be. Okay. So now, like we determined that if the junction is placed like this, it prefers to go up over than to go left or right. So if we put the junctions like this, will this have an effect? No, it still chooses the other one. What if we only had one pointing this way? I mean, that was the case without it being flipped, right? So, so it does seem to have a preferred exit port, the drill, which is the up port. If the connected grids have the same number of junctions until the cal container, then it prefers to push it up, it appears. So let's put another junction just in front of this one. And now it should prefer pushing it to this cal container. Yeah. But now if we put a cal container on top here, or did I just delete? Oh, wrong button. So now these are the same distance in terms of junctions between them, between this drill and the cal container. But this one branches off from the top direction of the drill. So my guess is it should show up in the 17 now. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. So one other thing that I'm curious about is like, so if there's only one junction block each, it will prefer pushing it out, right? Let's verify this once more. Okay. Up, not out. Yeah, so it pushes the container block 12. If we replace this junction block with the T junction block, will this make a difference? No, it does not. What if I reverse this and keep the junction block here and put a T block over here? No, same result. So what if I put a cal container on top? And which one will it show up? In 18. So this is the new one. So it prefers going up, which is the same behavior we've seen for these conveyor junction blocks. Although it's not entirely clear to me what is up and what is down on these here. I mean, other than the writing on them, obviously. Let's quickly verify this. Disconnect this and put another cargo container on top. So it should push it to the top one. Oops. Yeah. The question is this really, does this have to do with the direction of the junction? Or does it have to do with the fact that this block is higher in elevation, for example? So if I remove this conveyor junction, this block is going to come down. I think I did this experiment before. So now, oh, I need to get the size. Now, this block is, quote-unquote, the top of this conveyor junction. Now it should show up in this other block over here. So not in 16, but it does show up. Oh, wait, no, this is 16. Yes. So, number of junctions matters. Type of junction does not. The number of conveyor tubes does not seem to matter. If the number of junctions is the same, there's a preferred exit for junctions. So far, for all the blocks, it seems to be up as the preferred exit. So this T junction prefers to go, not push it straight, but to push it up. The drill seems to prefer pushing it up over pushing it out the sides. And there probably is a preference for pushing it out the sides as well that we haven't identified, but I don't think that's necessarily super important. And then this conveyor junction block also prefers to push it up. Or up is like based on the text that's on it. I don't think there's a preference based on cargo container size. Cargo container. But this should still push it out the top, right to the small cargo container. Yeah. And let's flip the cargo container sizes quickly. Move this. Yeah. Okay. But as soon as I put any form of junction in here, it will now no longer push it out to the top. Yeah. Even if I connect it to the preferred exit, right? So like if I put a here, cargo container, it's on the preferred exit of this junction, and it's super close from a kind of like direct distance to this drill, it will still push it into this here because there's no junction here. Yeah, that's the case. This is 22 over here. Let's summarize quickly. At least when it comes to pushing, the number of junctions between the block that is pushing and the possible cargo destinations is what influences which destination is being selected. If the number of junctions between them is equal, then there's a preferred exit for each block. Meaning, in this case, the preferred exit here is like the pushing block, right? I guess I would have to delete these here. I don't think this block counts as a junction, by the way. Because now, neither of these two cargo containers has a junction. And going up should be the preferred direction for this drill. Yeah, 24. This here is 24. So in this case, the preferred way for this mine drill to push is up. But that preferred direction selection could happen at a different level. So for example, if this over here is not connected and there's only a junction right here, then this junction, so this drill will definitely push it out to the top. Or in fact, if we put a bunch of conveyors here, junctions. So there's 3 junctions here and only 1 over here. So now the drill will push it out to the top because this one, either of these 2 blocks is closer than this one over there in terms of number of junctions. But this junction here will prefer to push it out to the side or upwards instead of to the large cargo container. So we should see it end up in the small cargo container over here, in this one. Right, so let's look at it. There we go. There it is. Perfect. I'm pretty sure that the cargo containers here are interchangeable. Like any valid destination is interchangeable here. So for example, if we were to have if we replace these two blocks here with H2 generators, right, we put an H2 generator here and one here. So then this cargo container and these H2 generators, they're all valid push targets for this ice. That said, the H2 generators will also pull the ice. So it definitely ended up in the first H2 generator, which might be this one. It's not this one. This is interesting. So in this case, it probably pulled the material. Now the build order might make a difference. I think when it comes to pulling, the question is which H2 generator gets to pull first. I think the most recent one might get priority here. Let's see. Actually, let's, just so we don't have anything pushing here, let's put a normal cow container here for the time being. So generator 3 pulled it, which is not the most recent one. It's the oldest one. So if I remove this one, we'll build this one first. This is now the oldest one. And then build this one next. This is the more recent one. Yeah, the oldest one pulled. So when it comes to who gets to pull first, it's older blocks over more recent ones. My guess is when it comes to determining where to pull from, so if we put on our car container here, so both of these car containers are the same distance from this H2 generator now. Okay, so let's remove this. Let's put 4,000 blocks into this one, 4,000 ice, 4K, and I'll just put 4K in each of them. Yeah, so now when we place this generator, where does it pull from? My guess is probably from this one on top here. Yeah, so it pulled from that one first. From this one next. And from this one last, which is exactly what I would have expected. When it comes to the order of when do blocks pull, the older blocks pull first, the more recent one block pull later. But when it comes to the source from where they pull, the number of junctions is relevant again. So if we put a cow container right here, and let's just get this ice out of here again. Oh, how's this cow container floating? I don't know, but it is. Shouldn't it fall? Okay. Let's put 4,000 ice into each of these again. So now this cow container won't have a junction between the H2 generator and the cargo container, and so it probably will prefer to pull from that one. Let's build another H2 generator. Yeah, so it cleared out this cow container, and I think the 1.4,000 here is cow container 2, which is probably this one on top, because again, it's the junction prefers to route from the top. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I think this settles the age-old discussion of how does the conveyor system work. When it comes to pushing blocks or pushing material, the block that is pushing will select its destination based on the number of junctions between the pushing block and the potential destination. If there are multiple blocks that are tied for the shortest distance, then the pushing block will prefer a specific direction first, and then every junction along the way will prefer a specific direction as well. And that direction is typically upwards from the block. When it comes to pulling material, the order of blocks pulling is determined by the build order, with the oldest blocks pulling first and the more recent blocks pulling later. And the source for the pull is determined again by the distance in terms of number of junctions. And the same rules as for pushing apply. If there's a tie for the shortest distance in terms of number of junctions, then the pulling block will prefer a certain exit, and each junction along the way will also prefer a certain exit or direction. Hey, Editor Me here. So I just want to caveat this because it turns out later in the video that this information is either incorrect or incomplete. I think it's incomplete, but I'll need to do some more digging to figure out exactly how especially different pullers interact with each other. It's not just based on the age of the block itself. But let's get back to the video. There we go. Equipped with this knowledge, we should now be able to build all the inventory management systems that we want for our iSpace. So let's jump back into the survival game. Okay, we're back in the survival world. Let's check off investigate how conveyors work. I don't know why there's a do there. This is so the next item is isolate mines from main storage. So we're gonna build this twice, and what I want to build here is basically what I call a full duplex sorter. Over here should be fine, although we might want some more space, but for now that's fine. What we're gonna do is, let's grind off this conveyor. What we're gonna do is we're gonna use 2 sorter blocks to allow the direction, the flow of material to be unimpeded in one direction, which I think would be, oh no, I see, this direction, and then be limited in the other direction. Although, in this case right now, the directions are reversed. So let's quickly weld this up. So now, I will connect this here, and put a junction here. And I'll just use a T junction for now. And this one's not connected correctly. There we go. Let's weld these up. Okay. So now we just need to configure these conveyors. And the idea is we'll allow all materials to flow into the mine, but we will blacklist any raw resources that we don't want to exit from the mine in this direction. So, in particular, in this case, this is going to be ice. This will isolate the ice mine from the main base storage. Any materials that we might need for building or anything else can still flow to the ice mine, but ice cannot leave the ice mine, so the ice won't continue clogging up our main storage area. That's awesome. Let's do the same thing for the stone mine over here. isolate mines from main storage is done. Build a gravel buffer. So we have a bunch of gravel in here in this random cargo container, but I want a more dedicated spot to store gravel for use in reactors later. And in particular, once I build a gravel disposal, I want that gravel in that dedicated storage to not be kicked out of the disposal. So I think what I need to do here is I'll probably leave a little bit of space here because I might want to expand this mine at a refinery at a later point. So maybe 2 blocks here, maybe 2 more, and then put it right here. Take this off, and we're going to put a junction here, and then we're going to put a sorter block right on top here, and I only want to allow gravel through the sorter block, nothing else. And I want it to drain all. So I want it to actively go out there and find all the gravel in this conveyor system and push it through here. And now I should be able to just put a couple of cargo containers. Okay, now, yeah, the gravel should already show up here. Perfect. We've successfully built a gravel buffer. Now let's build a gravel disposal. And we can use one of the things that we have just learned in building this. In particular, when multiple blocks are pulling, so this sorter here is pulling, and for the disposal we'll build another sorter that will be pulling. The order in which they are pulling is from oldest to more recent block. So this sorter will always be pulling first before whatever sorters we are building next. So that should lead to our storage or buffer being prioritized and being filled up before any unused gravel will be thrown out. Hey guys, Editor Me here again. As I mentioned earlier, this is not actually correct. So I did a little bit more research, and it seems like that sorter blocks in particular are not really sticking with this behavior and have quite random behavior. I spent several hours trying to, like off screen, trying to understand how exactly sorter block pulling works and how they prioritize against each other. And frankly, I was not able to determine it. Sorter blocks seem to randomly lock in a certain distribution, and once that is locked in, it remains rather consistent, but that distribution itself does not appear to be following any specific patterns. So let's say you have 3 sorter blocks. It's possible that each of them gets a third, and each of them will consistently get a third of the material. But then at the same time, they might lock in a 100% 0-0 distribution, and then all of the material will go to a single sorter block, and the 2 other sorter blocks will never get anything. All of that is a little bit alleviated if you have a strong overflow, because then all of them are being fed. But the question here is obviously which one of them will get prioritized if there's not enough material for all of them. It appears that rebuilding a sorter block will reset this distribution and also reloading the game. But again, I spent several hours and I could not really determine a consistent kind of like pattern to the sorter block behavior. Because of that, I will skip showing you guys how I built this ejector, because I will actually tear it down again and rebuild it from scratch in the next video in a way that it won't conflict with my gravel storage. Let's get back to the video. We've built a gravel disposal. Build overflow valves to turn off mines. A lot of mining scripts have this functionality where we will turn off the mine once the base runs out of storage capacity. I want to build something similar for our ice mine here. As we saw earlier, it like very, very aggressively overproduces ice compared to how much processing capacity we have. And so our ice storage will like very quickly fill up. When that happens, I want to turn off the mine, and ideally also turn it back on again once there is enough storage capacity again. And so I want to use vanilla blocks to do this. I don't want to use a script. Could use a script, but I think I can build it with vanilla blocks. So I want to build it with vanilla blocks. the idea that I had is we could build a mechanism that would as the storage fills up, the ice storage fills up, it would start injecting ice out of an ejector, and then we'd have a sensor close to that would detect floating material, and that would then turn off the mine. So as long as that ejector only ejects material when the mine is actually at capacity, we should be able to use that as a signal for the mine to turn off. I mentioned that I also want to turn off the mine again and turn on the mine again. What we can do is we can use a collector to immediately gobble up the floating material again. And if the mine is still at capacity, it will just eject it again. And so it will eject it and gobble it up, eject it and gobble it up, and it will just be in this loop as long as there's not enough storage. And only after there is enough storage capacity in the mine again, it will actually stop this looping. We can use this to set a timer that says, hey, if we haven't after 10 seconds turn on the mine again, and then we can start that timer every time the sensor turns off. And then if the sensor just keeps turning off, then that will reset the timer constantly. And only when it stops turning off, meaning it remains off, we will be able to actually finish that timer, which will turn on the mine again. So I'm going to put this junction here. And then I put a sorter block right here. And then I'll put this here. Another LPs here, and then the ejector goes right here. And then we put the collector down here. Like this. Okay, let's weld this up quickly. Okay. So if I now whitelist ice on this one, I'm not going to set it to drain, because I only want the material to go in here when all my other storage back there is full. And then it will push the ice in here into this ejector, which I will set to eject throughout. And then this collector will pick that up again. So let's quickly look if that is working. Let's look at some ice. We don't have any ice. We used it all. Then let's turn this back on. So let's quickly look. The small car container is filling up quickly. And as soon as this is full, it should start to overflow. It's not doing so yet. There we go. Yeah, that seems to be working just fine. Okay, what's happening now is that it's expelling more than the collector can collect. That is fine, though, I think. Because it should really be turning off the mine when it reaches, before it reaches that point. So let's turn off the mine manually quickly. The only thing we still need is a sensor, right? So let's put a sensor there. And then let's see here. And then we are not detecting players, but we're detecting floating objects. And we want to get it a little bit closer, I think. Let's do 2.5 meters in each direction. I think that should be sufficient. And you can trigger here. Every time this expels the material, it triggers. It didn't trigger there once, but I think that's fine. So now we need a program, not a programmable block, we need a timer block.
Energy critical.
So now, when the sensor triggers, we want the mining rig blocks to turn. Wait, is this ice? Ice mine blocks to turn off. And then overflow valve timer block. When it turns off, we want it to start that timer block. Now we need to set up the timer block. Ice mine blocks. Toggle block on. So the ice has just conveniently stopped flowing here, and it turned the mine back on. So now the mine should run for a little bit and fill up this little cargo container again. This connector will start injecting ice, which should turn off the mine. Let's monitor this here. Okay, I think at this point my mine has enough processing power compared to how much ice we're producing. So this is not actually causing the cow container to overflow right now. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to turn off some of these O2 generators. Let's turn them off. And that should cause an overflow pretty quickly. Okay, it has started, it has turned off the mine. As you can see, it keeps resetting the miner. Let's turn on the O2 generators now. I've turned them all off. They should start processing the ice. And as this ice gets processed, the generators should start pulling that ice out of this loop here again, which will make this timer block run to completion, which will turn on the mine again. Okay, it will take these hydrogen jet generators quite a while to churn through all that ice that is kind of like backed up now. We'll check on the mine later and see if it has successfully resumed. Until then, let's check this out. Build overflow valves to turn off mines. So we built one. Assuming this one works, we need to build a second one over here. So let's quickly do that. That should be the setup for this mine, and this mine should nicely turn off when necessary. Let's see if the other mine has recovered since. No, it's still cycling. Let's look if this is all correct here. These generators are slow reducing in ice, but they're still like they have thousands of blocks still in there. That cow container is still full. So yeah, this will still take a while. Okay, I think for now we can assume that these will work correctly. We'll double check once this mine actually turns back on again. So let's see here. Build overflow valves to turn off mines. That is done. Install inventory dashboard and expand inventory dashboard to show total and use percentage. Before we copy the inventory dashboard over here to this base, I think I'd love to do an update to the script first to show the total and use percentages. So really these two things need to be reversed, right? And this here would take quite a little bit. It will take some while. We need to do some digging through documentation and code again. And I think we should wait with that maybe for next time. I do have a couple more things that I'm eyeballing in terms of scripting to do another scripting-based episode. So I think these two things we should probably do when it comes to that. So for now, let's move all the things that we have completed this episode down here to iSpace done. Awesome. Hey guys, thanks a lot for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I upload Space Engineers videos twice a week, and there's lots of other stuff to explore on the channel. So thanks for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye.